today, it seems the smog in Lahore has descended as a fog on my brain. And since my friend Qamar Zaman Kaira has just traversed that smog-filled road traffic of Lahore, he needs to catch his breath. So in the meantime, I would like to invite Senator Syed Ali Zafar to give us his thoughts. Thank you, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'd like to first of all thank the organizers, including my dear friends, the Supreme Court Bar Association President and their committee, the Pakistan Bar Council, the panelists, ladies and gentlemen. 1,000 or more than 1,000 years ago, when the Greek people were talking about democracy, do you know what was the most feared form of government for them? Anybody from the audience? Most feared form of government? Kleptocracy. Kleptocracy literally means when power goes into the hands of thieves. Kleptocratic form of government, by definition, is when the powerful get together, they control the reins of a state, and then they loot and plunder its wealth so that the poor remain poor and the powerful continue to become richer. This was the most feared form of government. In my reading of Pakistan's history, people may agree or disagree with it, but in my view, in my interpretation, kleptocracy has actually invaded into the corridors of power in Pakistan. And not only that, but they have legitimized kleptocracy in the eyes of the public. And that is where the problem lies. If corruption of any kind becomes legitimate, if people start believing that they can get away with corruption, if people start accepting it as a facet of life, then the nation can only go downwards. It cannot rise. And that is where the problem lies. The biggest threat, in my view, the biggest threat, and this is not just my view, but when Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founder of this country, when he gave his first address, he also said this, that the biggest threat to our country is corruption. And I'm sure that no one here, not the panelists, not anybody in the public, will say that corruption is good. Everybody agrees that that is the greatest threat. It's a curse to democracy. It's a cancer. We have to fight this monster. That's also a fact. And we have to fight this monster. It is not easy. The fight is not easy, ladies and gentlemen, because those who have got their tentacles in power, those who have the kleptocrats or kleptocracy, they will fight back. And do you know how they will fight back? They will fight back by creating a perception that the process of accountability is flawed. It's mala fide. It is to target someone. They will want to ensure that in the eyes of the public, because without the public there can be no accountability. Without you, believing in the process of accountability, there can be no accountability. So kleptocracy will try. They will try to create a perception that people will start believing as reality. A perception that the accountability process is not impartial, that it is based on victimization. So any leadership that is to fight this war of the nation will have to walk a very tight rope. On the one hand, they will have to ensure that there is no corrupt person, powerful or not, that goes scot-free. They'll have to bring the guilt of corruption home. But at the same time, the tightrope calls for a balance. Ladies and gentlemen, it calls for a balance. And the balance lies in not overreaching. The balance lies in ensuring that no innocent are victimized. The balance lies in ensuring that it is not used as a tool for political vendetta. That is the balance of leadership. The leadership has to ensure that the guilty are not free, but the overreaching of any institution also has to be stopped and eradicated. Remember, in this fight, and I'll repeat again, because sometimes repetition is important. Remember that in this fight, perceptions are very important. The kleptocracy will try and create a certain reality in our minds, inaccurate reality that this accountability process is only one-sided. They will have arguments, they will have proofs. They may even have small evidences, ladies and gentlemen. But it is for us to clear and find out what is real and what is not. It is for us to continue with the process of accountability, hold tight to the rope of accountability. Not let it go, ladies and gentlemen. Not let it go. Hold tight so that we can actually bring the criminals, the real criminals, to justice. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in order to understand and clear the cobweb, clear the fog, in order to ensure that whether this is a reality, are people actually being victimized, or is the process of accountability real and genuine? In order to clear that, I will need to just take you back in time in the history of our politics and the history of NAB. And the reason I want to do that is because something was a reality before, and that reality is being used by a kleptocracy to create a perception today. The reality of the past is being used to create the perception of today. So I need to take you there. And I call this part of Pakistan's history, ladies and gentlemen, the revolving door politics. Have you ever gone into a hotel with a revolving door? As one person is going in, another is going out. And this revolving door politics of Pakistan is bad history. It is a history when there were two main political parties at each other's throats. One was the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, and the other was the Pakistan People's Party. They were at each other's throats. So in 88, Benazir Bhutto, Madam Benazir Bhutto, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, became the Prime Minister. Ghulam Ishaq Khan was used by the PMLN to throw her out in exercise of powers under what they called the Article 58(2)(b). After 2 years, she was out. There was a lot of tension between the two. Revolving door, she goes out, in comes Mr. Nawaz Sharif as the Prime Minister. Again, enmity, enmity, enmity. And the same president, after 3 years, in 1993, throws out Nawaz Sharif government also. Through the revolving door, Nawaz Sharif goes out, and through the revolving door, immediately comes in Madam Bezaniz again. She comes in, and in 2 years, less than 3 years, she's thrown out again. This time by her own president exercising the same power. In comes Nawaz Sharif Saab again. And what does he do? This time he says, and it's a historical fact, so I'm not going to mince words. This time he says, I will use ihtisab as a tool to crush my opponents. He said, I will make a law, because corruption everybody hates, and that will look good in the public, and it will go good. And while it is looking good, I will also be able to jail my opponents. So he appointed this gentleman called Saifur Rahman as the chairman of the Ihtisab Bureau. In common parlance, it was the time of Ihtisab justice. Cases were filed against Benazir, her family, her mother, her husband, and we all know what was going on. But this did not live long. Less than 3 years later, Mr. Nawaz Sharif was also sent home, and General Pervez Musharraf Saab came in. He said, Ihtisab out, NAB in. And the NAB law was promulgated. This NAB law was also used by that regime as a tool for political opponent victimization. That was the reality. That was the historic reality. Then what happened? Then what happened was that our great leaders of the two parties that were fighting sat together somewhere. Where did they sit? They sat in the House of Parliament in London, and they came up with an agreement. Just 5 minutes. They came up with an agreement, and they said, no more victimization. We have been victimizing each other. They admitted in the document itself that we have been victimizing each other. No more victimization. And we will make it more transparent by having a chairman appointed by the leader of the opposition and the leader of the house together. So they said we will have an independent chairman, and therefore everything will be all right. When they came back in power after Musharraf was gone, they did make an amendment in the NAB law. That first amendment was relating to the appointment of the chairman. But what they did not do, ladies and gentlemen, what they did not do is equally important. There were many lacunas in the law, many gaps, bid'atein, due to which that law could have been abused. They opted not to change those laws in NAB, in spite of being in power for ages. I remember, ladies and gentlemen, same place, Awari, not here, but next building. We were having a conference under the auspices of Supreme Court Bar Association of Pakistan. I think Mr. Kaira was also there. And we called upon the political parties of the time, and we said, please amend the laws so that we can make them more transparent. Please make sure that we don't lose this accountability process to perceptions. But what did the PMLN say, there is no need. The law is clear, it is unambiguous. We will not change it. So the law was not changed. Ladies and gentlemen, when we came, I've got a thing, I had some 10 minutes to go, but I'll try and close this now in 5 minutes. So ladies and gentlemen, when we came in 2018, we inherited this law. The current government inherited this law. And we inherited the lacunas. But one thing was clear, that in this 3 years period, we said we are not going to spare anyone, we are going to change the perception at least. The perception that the powerful are not going to be held accountable. We said we will leave NAB to reach out and touch kleptocracy if they can, and we let that happen. So the perception, the positive reality today is that amongst the general public, everybody now is fearful of NAB. It is fearful that corruption will not be allowed to be, nobody will be allowed to get away with corruption, that powerful can also be prosecuted. But at the same time, having made this point, the perception is still there. Even while I was coming into the hall and talking to a few people, the perception was still there that no, this accountability process is not as transparent. We heard two of our very learned panelists also say the same thing. So what is the job of the government now? The job is first to identify why this perception is still persisting. It is an inaccurate perception. It is not correct, because what we want to do is make sure that everybody who's corrupt, wherever he may be, is brought to the book. But why is the perception still lingering? Why is the repetition by the kleptocracy that no, this accountability process is not transparent? Why is it still continuing? We need to identify that, and I have identified the 3 points. One first problem is that NAB has overreached itself. And how has it overreached? It is because of the lacunas in the law. What are they doing? They are taking collective decisions by cabinets. They have filed references on the basis of that. They are harassing bureaucrats who decide a question, who decide something without any corruption, without any evidence of wrongdoing, without any benefit, and prosecuting them. They are getting involved with private disputes. So the impression is being created as if a number of innocent people are being victimized. And that impression is feeding into the perception that the accountability process is not correct. Sorry. Second important aspect is that yes, NAB has certain structural flaws. I would say, as a lawyer, what is most important is for an institution or investigating agency to have a separate department of investigation and a separate department of prosecution, so that when the investigators bring in the case to the prosecution should be able to independently judge. That is not what is happening. The investigator comes in, brings in a case, and the case is filed. So at the end of the day, when cases are not being decided, perception again comes that no, look, because the cases are not being decided, it is taking a long time, therefore the entire process is one-sided. So these perceptions, ladies and gentlemen, have to be cleared. The latest ordinance that we have passed, I agree, it should not have been through ordinances maybe, but the fact is that because we cannot sit together as political parties and decide matters in cases of emergency, for the temporary period, we need to bring the law, we need to correct the law. So these lacunas, because of which NAB was overreaching, these lacunas have been clarified in this ordinance. NAB can no longer, without proof of corruption, file a reference against anyone. These are the lacunas so that the perception is right, so that the perception is finished and the accurate facts are there. We need the public, we need the people like you to stand by us in the matters of accountability. With this, I would just like to quote one famous German philosopher, and he was talking about how to tackle monsters. He said, while tackling monsters, don't become a monster yourself. If you stare into an abyss for a long, long time, the abyss will stare back at you. My hope today, seeing all of you and hoping that our perceptions are changing, my hope and wish is, and I quote in other words, I say that if we keep on staring into hope, hope will stare back at us. So I would hope that we ultimately continue with this process of accountability. It is not victimization, it is only a perception. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry. Apologies to Senator Ali.